Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The early morning light filtered through the high windows of Silvermoon's royal chambers, casting long, warm rays across the marble floor. Lord Thamar Theron, Regent Lord of the Blood Elves, stood alone at the massive oak table in the center of the room, his sharp, golden eyes scanning the reports before him. His brow furrowed slightly as he absorbed the news. The Arcane Council, a body that had long served Silvermoon's interests, was becoming a source of trouble. Whispers of dark magic, corruption, and treachery had surfaced in recent weeks, and now it seemed those rumors were solidifying into something far more dangerous. A sudden knock at the chamber door interrupted his thought. "Enter," Lord Thamar commanded, his voice calm but laced with tension. The door creaked open, and a blood elf messenger, her face pale with anxiety, stepped in, bowing quickly. "Regent Lord, urgent news," she said breathlessly. "There are confirmed reports that several members of the Arcane Council have been discovered practicing forbidden magic. The evidence is strong, my lord, and the city is on edge. What are your orders?" Lord Thamar's jaw tightened. He had hoped these whispers would turn out to be nothing more than the usual political maneuvering. But this was worse than he had anticipated. "Hire summon Lady Liedrin immediately. See her," he ordered, turning back to the table and gathering the scattered reports into a neat file. "We will deal with this quietly for now." The messenger bowed again and hurried out, leaving Lord Thamar alone once more. His mind raced with the implications if members of the Arcane Council were truly guilty of consorting with forbidden magic. The stability of Silvermoon itself could be at risk. The city had suffered enough over the years, the Scourge invasion, the loss of the Sunwell, and now it seemed the greatest threat might come from within their own rank. It wasn't long before the heavy wooden door swung open again, this time revealing Lady Liedrin, commander of the Blood Knights and Lord Thamar's most trusted ally. She strode into the room with her usual grace, her armor gleaming in the morning light, the sigil of the Blood Knights prominent on her chest plate. Her golden hair was tied back in a warrior braid, and her piercing blue eyes met Lord Thamar's with a knowing glance. "You summoned me, Regent Lord," she asked, her voice calm but serious, always ready for action. "Yes, Liedrin," Lord Thamar said, motioning for her to approach. "It appears the rumors about the Arcane Council were true. We have several confirmed reports of forbidden magic use among their rank. I fear this is more than a simple political dispute. It could be a prelude to something much worse." Liedrin's eyes narrowed as she processed the information. "Sorry, who are the suspects?" "The French," she asked. "I am still gathering names, but they seem to be senior members of the council. I need you to lead the investigation discreetly. If word of this gets out, it could cause panic. And the last thing we need right now is the city descending into chaos." Liedrin nodded, her expression grim but resolute. "I'll take care of it, dear," she said. "I'll start with the Council's inner circle and see what I can uncover. If they're consorting with dark magic, we need to act fast, for they gain too much power." Lord Thamar allowed himself a small sigh of relief. If anyone could handle this delicate situation, it was Liedrin. Her loyalty was unwavering and her skills unmatched. "Be careful," he cautioned. "If they were using forbidden magic, they won't hesitate to strike against anyone who stands in their way." Liedrin gave a curt nod and turned on her heel, ready to begin her mission. As the door closed behind her, Lord Thamar returned to the table, staring down at the map of Silvermoon spread before him. The city was beautiful, a shining beacon of blood, elf power, and culture. But it was also fragile, its people still recovering from the tragedies of the past. He could not allow a new threat to tear it apart from the inside. As the hours passed, Lord Thamar continued to pore over reports, dispatching scouts and agents to gather more information. His mind churned with possibilities, each more troubling than the last. What could the council members hope to gain from dabbling in dark magic? Were they seeking power for themselves, or was there something even more sinister at play? It wasn't long before the first reports from Liedrin's investigation began to trickle in. Several members of the Arcane Council had been observed meeting in secret, their gatherings held in the dead of night, away from prying eye. More troubling evidence suggested they were performing rituals, arcane in nature, but tainted with a dark, corrupt energy. Lord Thamar felt a cold dread settle over him. This was no mere political maneuvering. These council members were playing with forces they could not control. And if they succeeded, Silvermoon could be plunged into a nightmare from which it might never recover. Days passed, intense anticipation. Laura Thamar and Lingerie worked tirelessly to contain the threat, but the deeper they dug, the more disturbing the revelations became. The Arcane Council traders were not acting alone. Something ancient and malevolent lurked beneath the surface, a force that had been imprisoned for centuries, but was now stirring in response to the Council's reckless use of magic. Lingerie returned one evening, her face lined with exhaustion, but her eyes burning with determination. "We have confirmation," she said, dropping a thick, leather-bound tome onto the table in front of Florendemar. "This is what they've been using, a spellbook filled with forbidden ritual. And there's something else. These rituals, they were not just about gaining power. They were awakening something older than Silvermoon itself." Lord Samar's heart sank as he flipped through the pages of the tome, his fingers brushing over the dark symbols etched into the ancient parchment. "An ancient entity," he murmured, the words heavy with dread. "The word, if they manage to awaken it." "They were close," Lingerie said, her voice tense. "But we still have time to stop them. We need to act now before they can complete the ritual." Lord Samar stood, his mind racing. "Gather the Blood Knights. Paris," he ordered. "We'll move against them tonight. If we're lucky, we can catch them before they have a chance to strike." As he stared down at the dark magic inscribed on its pages, a chill ran down his spine. The blood of the Sin Durai had always been tied to magic, but this was different. This was corruption on a scale he had never imagined. The streets of Silvermoon were eerily quiet that night as Lord Thamar led a small force of Blood Knights through the winding alleys and gilded plazas of the city. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a pale glow over the elegant spires and shimmering fountain. But despite the city's beauty, Lord Thamar could feel the tension in the air. The people knew something was wrong. They could sense the darkness creeping into their city, even if they couldn't truly see it. Lingerie moved silently at his side, her armor gleaming faintly in the moonlight. They approached the arcane sanctum, a towering structure of shimmering stone and arcane energy, the heart of magical power in Silvermoon. It was here that the traders had made their lair, hidden in the shadow of the very power they sought to corrupt. Lord Thamar signaled for his soldiers to move in. They fanned out around the sanctum, their weapons ready, their eyes scanning for any sign of danger. Inside, the traders were gathered, their voices low as they chanted in an ancient tongue. The air crackled with arcane energy, and Lord Thamar could feel the pull of dark magic as it swirled around them. The attack was swift and brutal. Lord Thamar and his Blood Knights stormed the sanctum, cutting down the traders with deadly precision. But as they fought their way deeper into the chamber, the air grew colder, and the walls seemed to pulse with a dark, malevolent energy. And then, with a deafening roar, the ancient entity began to awaken. The deafening roar echoed through the sanctum as the walls trembled, and a cold, oppressive force filled the air. Lord Thamar could feel the ancient entity's presence pressing down on them like a weight that made it hard to breathe. He exchanged a brief glance with Lingerie, both of them realizing at that moment that they were standing on the brink of catastrophe. The traders, what remained of them, had ceased their chanting. Instead, they stood in stunned silence as the ground beneath them cracked, glowing with the sickly light of dark magic. Lord Thamar gritted his teeth, gripping his blade tighter. This was what they had been trying to stop. The very thing they had feared the entity was awakening, fed by the forbidden ritual. "We need to seal it now," Lord Thamar shouted, his voice barely audible over the rising hum of arcane energy. Lingerie responded with a nod and raised her weapon, the light shimmering around her like a protective shield. She moved forward, but the traders, even in their shock, were not ready to give up. They rushed at her, their hands alight with the same corrupted magic they had used to awaken the entity. The spells crackled through the air like blackened lightning, but Lingerie met them head-on, her shield absorbing the impact. With a swift counterattack, she cut through their ranks with precision and power, leaving a path of destruction in her wake. Lord Thamar advanced alongside her, cutting down those who dared stand in his way. The last of the traders fell, but the entity was not yet subdued. The very ground they stood on seemed to heave and pulse as if the entity beneath Silvermoon was clawing its way up through the earth. The temperature in the sanctum plummeted, and the dark magic swirling around them grew more intense. It's not enough, Liadrin shouted over the roar of the energy that surrounded them. The traitors may be dead, but the entity is still feeding off the magic they unleashed. Lord Thamar looked around, eyes scanning the darkened chamber. His thoughts raced as he tried to think of a solution, something to stop this before it was too late. But every second they waited, the arcane entity grew stronger, and soon it would break free of whatever ancient prison had held it for so long. There has to be a way to sever its connection to the ley lines. Lord Sarah turning to Liadrin. Kiar, we need to stop it from drawing power from the city. Liadrin's eyes widened, understanding dawning on her face. They are the ley lines, of course. They run beneath the entire city, right through here. That's what chest feeding it. If we cut them off, we can stop the awakening. The realization hit Lorisiamar like a bolt of lightning. The ley lines, the magical lifeblood of Silvermoon, were being corrupted by the dark magic the traitors had unleashed. If they could sever that connection, they might have a chance. But it was a risky move. Silvermoon relied on those ley lines for its defenses, its energy. Disrupting them could leave the city vulnerable. Still, the alternative was unthinkable. The Zamanatimanar ordered without hesitation. Sortaru, we have no other choice. Liadrin didn't argue. She immediately began channeling the light, focusing her energy on the ley lines below. Lord Thamar watched as the chamber filled with radiant energy bright enough to cut through the oppressive darkness. But as Liadrin worked, the entity seemed to sense the danger. A massive surge of power erupted from the ground, and with a bone-shaking tremor, the chamber began to collapse around them. Lord Thamar barely had time to react before a chunk of the ceiling came crashing down, forcing him to dive out of the way. He rolled to his feet, dirt and debris raining down around him. The entity's presence was everywhere now, suffocating in its intensity. He could feel its malevolence, its hunger for power. If it broke free, it would devour Silvermoon and possibly the entire world. Lord Zamar, Liadrin's voice cut through the chaos, and he turned to see her, struggling to maintain her focus. The light still radiated from her, but her strength was waning. The effort of severing the ley lines, combined with the oppressive force of the entity, was taking its toll. We're almost there, she shouted, her voice strained with effort. Ari, but I don't know how much longer I can hold it. Lord Thamar moved to her side, gripping his sword with renewed determination. I'll buy you as much time as I can. Had us, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. The ground beneath them rumbled again, and from the cracks in the floor, dark tendrils of arcane energy shot up, lashing out like living things. Lord Thamar struck them down with swift, powerful blows, but for everyone he destroyed, another seemed to take its place. The entity was fighting back now, desperate to prevent them from severing its connection to the city. Suddenly, a massive tendril burst from the ground, larger than any Lars Thamar had seen before. It slammed into him with the force of a battering ram, knocking him across the chamber. He hit the floor hard, his sword clattering away from him as pain shot through his body. For a moment, everything went dark. When his vision cleared, he saw the tendril moving toward Lipan, who was still focused on the leafy lines, unaware of the danger closing in on her. Without thinking, Lord Thamar forced himself to his feet, every muscle in his body screaming in protest. He grabbed his sword and charged, his vision narrowing to the single task of protecting Liadrin. With a roar, he leapt at the tendril, driving his blade deep into its writhing mass. The creature let out a shriek of fury as it dissolved into dark mist, but the effort left Lord Thamar gasping for breath. He stumbled, his strength nearly spent, but he couldn't stop. Now if they didn't finish this, Silvermoon would be lost. Liadrin So's voice, filled with both agony and determination, rang out once more. Now I am severing it. A brilliant flash of light erupted from her, blinding in its intensity. Lord Thamar shielded his eyes as the ground beneath them cracked open, the ley lines snapping like taut cords under the force of her power. The entity let out a final deafening roar, the sound of a creature denied its freedom, and then, with a shudder that rocked the entire city,
it was gone.
Silence fell over the sanctum. The oppressive weight that had filled the air vanished, replaced by an eerie stillness. Lord Thamar slowly lowered his arm, blinking away the spots in his vision. The dark energy that had swirled around them was gone, leaving only the faint glow of arcane energy that still pulsed through the walls of the sanctum. Liadrin collapsed to her knees, her strength utterly spent. Lord Thamar moved to her side, helping her to her feet. You did it, he said quietly, the weight of what they had just accomplished settling over him. Leodadrin gave a weak smile, but her exhaustion was clear. Sayuri did it. Pray, she corrected, her voice barely above a whisper. Together, they made their way out of the ruined sanctum, the weight of their victory heavy on their shoulders. The traitors were dead and the entity was sealed once more, but the cost had been high. Silvermoon had been saved, but Laurenthimar knew that the city had been scarred by this ordeal. Trust had been broken, and the people would not soon forget the betrayal that had nearly torn their city apart. As they emerged into the cold night air, Laurenthimar looked out over the city. The damage was visible even from here. Buildings had crumbled, and the streets were littered with debris. But the people of Silvermoon had survived worse, and they would rebuild. They always did. For now, though, Laurenthimar allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The traitors had been stopped, and the city was safe for now. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The entity might be sealed, but its presence still lingered, like a shadow over Silvermoon. And somewhere out there in the dark corners of the world, there were those who would seek to release it again. He would be ready.